Phoenix Forgotten is definitely one of those better found footage movies that get a wide release, but it's not going to convert people that don't like found footage. If you hate found footage movies, you're not going to come out liking this movie at all. Phoenix Forgotten is definitely a fake documentary slash found footage film. I know found footage is technically fake documentary from a lot of movies, but at the same time, some found footage movies don't feel like a documentary. This one, half of it feels like a documentary and the other half feels like raw found footage. Now there is a real life mysterious event that happened that there is no real... I don't think there's any real solid evidence on what exactly happened. So people believe maybe it was alien, some people believe it was military. There's no real clear answer that I know of. And I'm talking about the Phoenix Lights. And this movie is revolved around it. It's revolved around three teenagers that try to discover the mystery of the Phoenix Lights and disappear and are never heard from again. And so 20 years after these missing teenagers, which I believe the missing teenagers is fictional. I think the only thing that is true in this is the fact that Phoenix Lights happened and it was recorded and it's mysterious. The whole events of this movie revolving around it are fictional. But anyway, about 20 years after the three teenagers go missing in the desert, one of the teenagers' sister wants to know the truth, wants to figure out what happened to her brother and the other two teens. And so now she starts up a documentary about him and about the mystery surrounding him and the Phoenix Lights. And along the way, she discovers more things and discovers more found footage. That's pretty much what Phoenix Forgotten is. Now, I do feel this movie is above average. It is better than most wide-release found footage films. Now, keep in mind that I might be a little biased because, one, I am a horror movie fan, so I go a little easier on horror movies probably than most people. And I'm not put off by found footage films. I do feel that every so often there is a gem, there is one that is above all the rest, and there is one that is really great and I wish there was more attention put on it. So I do go out of my way sometimes to find found footage films so I can review them and so that I can see if this is a secret gem or just one of the mediocre movies, or just one of the plain bad movies that you should not remember at all. But I do feel Phoenix Forgotten is above average. There is a lot of cliches, there is tropes that we see time and time again in found footage movies, but it does do something a little different and a little bit more creative. Now that might not be enough for you because the creativity, the originality that is in the movie that is different from other found footage films is more low-key, very subtle, and not all that engaging as much, at least not for mainstream audience. So that's why I feel that only fans of found footage films will probably appreciate this and say, okay, this is definitely better than most. So what did I like about it? I like the structure of this movie. Ultimately, you do have two stories in one and parallel each other. One of the stories is these three teens that are trying to discover the truth about the Phoenix Lights, trying to go out into the desert, interview people, and find out the truth. While at the same time you have a present-day story of a sister trying to find out what happened to her missing brother. Interviewing the parents of these three missing teens, interviewing people that were in the search party and responsible for trying to find them. And there definitely is a very cohesive way that these two stories are melded together because they do feel like it is just the present day documentary and these clips were added into that documentary at the right times while the sister is finding out more about the mystery of these three teens. You also got added footage of news clips and fake news clips as well. Honestly, I feel that everything blends in well and is completely understandable. Though I do see there were some reviews that weren't particularly fond of that and thought it was a mess and didn't understand a goddamn thing, apparently. I don't know, it was very easy for me to follow. Now let's talk about the camera work. Let's talk about the cinematography because, alright, it is a found footage movie. There is shaky cam, there is handheld camera, there is a documentary style to it, and to most people, it just looks bad and just dismiss it as just bad camera work. But personally, I thought it was good, especially for the found footage genre. Every time it was going to the past, every time it was going to news clippings, every time it was going to the present, it felt like all completely different cameras, like it should. For the present, there is a cleaner, more digital style. It does probably look closer to what mine would be, because I'm not a professional and I don't have a big expensive camera either. While in the past and the news clippings, there is more of a staticky feel to it and more of a tape feel to it. That's because they were using cameras that actually use the mini VHSs. I remember I think I still have that camera somewhere. I know I still have mini VHS tapes because all our vacations and stuff are taped on it. Actually, you know what? Yeah, these mini VHSs. Really brought back memories when I saw those on the big screen. There were some shots in the movie that I definitely admired because it was more cinematic, it did look more documentary style, and did look a little bit more artistic. Even in some of the past footage as well as the present footage. Even so, I was still a little annoyed with the camera work, especially when it came to them running and the camera shaking. We knew it was going to happen. It does it maybe a little too much for me, but not enough to really hate it. I'm sure it's going to be enough for people to hate it who don't like found footage films, but for me, it was okay. Honestly, I was a little bit more annoyed with the fact that the camera seemed zoomed in on people a little too much at times, especially during the present day footage. Honestly, that was more annoying than the shaky cam. But ultimately, I'm still fine with it because it felt amateurish and it felt like it was meant to be amateurish because they're not professionals. Or at least they're not supposed to be professionals for the authenticity of this movie. Yes, I know it's fake, but they need to make it a little bit real, make it feel a little more authentic, and these people aren't professional cameramen. Speaking of feeling real, I thought all the acting felt real in this movie. Everyone felt like they were just normal human beings. Now to some people, I'm sure they'll think it's bad acting, and there are moments when they're supposed to be bad acting because it's trying to imitate the awkwardness of normal people trying to talk in a camera and just not used to talking in a camera. Like when they're interviewing people, or when they have one of the teenagers that they designate as the host, I feel. They don't say it, but they do use him as sort of the host of the past documentary. Yeah, during the past storyline, there's one of the teenagers is named Mark. He's not the main character. He's not the brother that goes missing for the present day main character. He's the tag along, and he almost becomes the designated host of their documentary and their discovery of the truth of the Phoenix Lights. Because there are times where he explains on camera a few things, and it is awkward and it does feel like it's badly acted, but it feels like it's meant to be because he's more of a real person not used to talking to a camera. Hell, I probably seem that way in some of my movie reviews. And so yeah, I bought it and I felt that it was pretty authentic and I liked the acting in this movie. Again, it's not great, but it's not meant to be great. If you think purposely being awkward and bad acting and trying to be real as well is bad acting, then you're not going to like it. I like that there's an overall obsessive feeling in this movie. It is a little bit low-key, it is a little bit understated in the movie, but I feel that I got it, I understood it, and I felt that way because it fueled the mystery of the movie. Our two main characters are obsessive of learning the truth, wanting to know what happened. Josh, our main character in the past setting of the movie, is obsessive of the Phoenix Lights, obsessive about aliens and the possibility of UFOs and wanting to find the truth. While our main character in the present day, Sophie, Josh's sister, is obsessive of wanting to know, wanting a conclusion, wanting some closure of knowing what happened to her brother and the two other teens. And I feel that obsessiveness underneath the whole movie really fuels the mystery, and if you buy into it, you're hooked and you're on the edge of your seat the entire film, practically. The dialogue isn't the greatest. There is times where it is repetitive and annoying, but at the same time it feels real, it feels authentic because these are people that are scared for their lives. During the moments where it feels repetitive, it feels like, okay, you're just saying the same thing over and over again. It's during times when the characters are desperate, don't know what's happening, and are scared for their lives. And so it makes sense. I also like the whole interviews with the search party people and the parents that are just obsessive of knowing what happened to their son, or have gotten to a point where they were so obsessive for so long and just wanted closure that they sort of broke and just became shells of their former self. I did admire that in this movie, and it was pretty effective. Like I said, it's low-key and understated, but I feel it was pretty effective for me. Again, if you don't like subtle stuff, then you'll probably skip over that and have no idea about that and not care about that at all. Now, when the special effects kicked in at the end of the film, I did find them good. I found them acceptable. I did like the special effects in this movie. They felt real. But then again, it could be just because the camera doesn't focus on them too long, and you basically get glimpses. And if you're fast enough, you can understand, okay, well, that's happening, and wow, that's actually pretty cool, but it doesn't focus long enough for you to really delve into, okay, does it look real or not? It's kind of like that quick turn away. You just see glimpses of things like the spaceship and some other special effects and how they suck people up into the spaceship. Yeah, it is a horror movie, it is a sci-fi, so obviously the UFOs are actually real in this movie, and it's not just a light show. I know that sounds spoilerish, but let's face it, this is a found footage movie, and throughout the entire film, it explicitly states that they never found the bodies of these 3 teens, and so you kind of know going into it, okay, either they're all going to die, they're all going to become lost and in the desert forever, or they're going to get sucked up by aliens if it's a real UFO sci-fi thing. So you kind of know the ending already, which unfortunately could bum a bunch of people out. That doesn't bother me at all, honestly. It's more about the journey, it's more about the adventure, the mystery, rather than being able to predict what happens in the film. I did find the movie a little creepy. I didn't find it scary at all, but then again, it's very hard to scare me, especially with movies, because I've become so used to horror movies. I saw them at such a young age that I've become accustomed to them, and they don't really scare me at all. But I did find some of the things creepy in this movie, and I did like the ideas that the movie had about the science fiction aspect, the alien aspect, the abduction aspect. I did enjoy the uniqueness of those things. Now, the past storyline of the movie, it does feel very much like 1997. Some of the styles, what the people look like, the haircuts, a lot of it looked very 90s. Now, if you are a movie buff, if you do like science fiction movies and you've seen science fiction movies and series from the 90s, you might be able to tell that there are at least two glaring errors in this movie. There's an X-Files VHS tape, and they have knowledge of the movie Contact, but unfortunately those 2 things happened after the events of the film. So if you're a movie buff of science fiction 90s films, you'll know, hey, that's not right. But who knows, maybe there's a few other ones that I don't notice. Like, I'm not a vehicle expert, so maybe the vehicle they drove, or some of the vehicles in the movie, maybe they're not up to par with 1997 either. Who knows? I also like the fact that it's not just strict found footage movie. It's got raw found footage in it, but it has a documentary style to it. Now, a lot of found footage movies do have a documentary style that is part of the found footage genre. But usually when it's a found footage movie with a little bit of documentary style to it, it's from the people actually making the found footage film. It's from the people that supposedly filmed the found footage. And it starts off with them interviewing people and then going out into the woods or the desert or some remote area and then all disappearing and all dying, and then someone discovers the film off camera. You definitely get that vibe in the past found footage section, but there's also a present day section of people actually finding the found footage. And so there's a whole story sort of revolving around them finding the footage that is in the film. And so that's something that honestly I don't think I've seen in found footage movies. Usually it's like a title that says, hey, we found this footage from such and such, and this is just raw footage of what we found, and then text at the end saying they were never seen again. You have a little bit of that too, but you have an actual person or a character in this movie finding the footage, and I think that was actually done well. Now, being that this is a found footage movie, and if you know the ending of many found footage films, this probably will leave you disappointed. Especially if you get involved with the movie, you feel that obsessiveness and you feel that need for closure, you might hate this film. Personally, I got wrapped up into it, and I think the ending is really bittersweet. It's very cliched, but it's one that, honestly, I think is really good for the movie. Because ultimately, the ending, you do get closure, you do find out what happened to the teens, and you can hypothesize of what exactly happened to them, but you do see something. So you do get closure, but at the same time, it leads up to even more mystery and more questions. And I feel that is a very good ending for a movie that's about obsessiveness over the truth, trying to figure out what happened, at the same time wanting closure. I think, honestly, that's a really good ending, I feel. But you might not feel that way. You might just think, oh, it's an open ending, and oh, this is terrible, that we don't really get answers, and what happened to Sophie, and what about this, and maybe she should go out to the desert, and if you're looking for that kind of stuff, you're going to hate this film. Honestly, I enjoyed the film, and I'm going to give Phoenix Forgotten 3.5 stars. So, did you see Phoenix Forgotten? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. And if not, what is a found footage film that surprised you? A found footage film you didn't think you were going to like, but ultimately thought, hey, that was pretty good, or even excellent. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.